Welcome, kindred spirits. The greatest shifts rarely start with a bang, but with a whisper, a single voice that refuses to be silenced. History echoes with the truth of it. One act of defiance can topple empires, change the course of destiny, and shatter illusions that millions held as unbreakable. And the ironic part, often the person who lights the fuse doesn't fully grasp the magnitude of their actions. That's the story unfolding with you, the ones who resonate with this message. By standing your ground against what seemed like a personal attack, you unknowingly disrupted a system poised to consume countless lives, reaching even the industry's highest echelons. Think about it. While the world was captivated by celebrities' fleeting trends and the fleeting validation of influencers, you were quietly acting as spiritual guardians, deflecting unseen threats without recognition or reward. Somehow you accomplished what entire boardrooms and billion-dollar campaigns couldn't. You created a glitch in the matrix. Isn't it almost absurd? They poured vast resources into constructing these invisible traps, yet all it took was one individual refusing to yield to trigger its collapse. This isn't mere survival, it's disruption on a soul level. And today we're going to explore how your courage not only shielded you, but also paved a new path for countless others, many unaware of the danger they narrowly escaped. Number one, you confronted a machine, not just an individual. You didn't just neutralize an opponent. You disrupted an entire machine. Grasp the weight of that. What came against you wasn't simply intended to make your life difficult. It was a carefully constructed system designed to ensnare and drain countless individuals, often without them even realizing it. These kinds of attacks rarely occur in isolation. They are crafted like products designed to replicate, spread, and normalize dysfunction until entire communities exist under its control. And by refusing to yield, you threw a wrench into the gears of that machine. This is where the fundamental difference lies. Most people believe resistance is merely saying no to something they dislike. But when you're aligned with a deeper purpose, your resistance resonates like a virus that rewrites the program's code. The system didn't just lose one potential victim. It lost an entire branch of its strategy because your refusal exposed the flaws in its design. It was never prepared for someone who could see through the illusion and stand against it without compromise. That's why the backlash against you felt so disproportionate. You weren't just breaking free, you were dismantling their model. Consider the industries that thrive on distraction, manipulation, and exploitation. Their power hinges on the silence and compliance of the many. A single act of resistance can feel insignificant in the moment, but it's often that one person who sets off a chain reaction. Suddenly, the program has to scramble to cover its tracks to explain why its usual tactics are failing. And in the process of self-preservation, it weakens. That's what you did. You disrupted a machine that believed itself invincible. You reminded it that no matter how polished or powerful it appeared, it remained vulnerable to the one thing it couldn't program: the will of someone who refuses to be owned. That's why your victory transcends your personal experience. It destabilized something that was intended to control far more than your life. It thwarted a plan aimed not just at you, but at countless others who may never know you saved them. Number two, your battle wasn't just personal, it resonated globally. It's easy for outsiders to dismiss attacks on those who stand for truth as merely personal, isolated incidents. But the reality is your fight was never solely about you. The magnitude of what you faced carried the fingerprints of something far larger. These systems never deploy their most potent weapons against a single individual, unless that individual poses a threat to the bigger picture. The attack that manifested in your life was meant to open the floodgates for countless others, including those comfortably positioned in the highest seats of influence. By standing your ground, you not only defended yourself, you intercepted a blow intended to sweep across generations and industries. This is what elevates your stand to extraordinary. You became the one who absorbed the initial impact before it could spread like wildfire. Most people don't realize that individuals aligned with truth often act as the first line of defense, confronting what others cannot even perceive. If you had yielded, the attack would have multiplied, gaining momentum as it infected culture, entertainment, politics, and everyday lives. Instead, your resistance forced it to halt in its tracks. That single act of defiance created a ripple effect, protecting countless individuals who will never know your name. And here's the paradox. Many of those very people might look down on you, dismiss you, or even mock you, all while benefiting from the shield you provided. They don't realize their safety came at the cost of the pressure you endured. Even those within the industry with their platforms, influence, and power evaded a blow because you refused to bend. That's the hidden burden of standing for truth. Your battles always carry the weight of others, even when they are unaware of what you carry for them. So while it might have appeared as a personal struggle, it was never merely personal. It echoed globally. Your resistance not only safeguarded your own destiny, it secured futures, careers, and entire communities from an attack designed to strip them bare. You stood alone, but the freedom you secured extends far beyond you. Number 3, you became a firewall they couldn't account for. You became the firewall they hadn't anticipated. Systems of control operate like code. They're designed with precision, intended to predict human responses and calculated to keep people trapped in loops without them ever questioning their reality. They know how most people will react to pressure: give in, remain silent, seek approval, or settle for mere survival. That's why the system functions so seamlessly. It relies on the predictability of human behavior. But when you emerged, you broke the code. You didn't react as they expected. You didn't yield where others typically do. You didn't follow the script they had written for you. And in that moment, the entire system glitched. You weren't supposed to resist. You weren't supposed to see through the distractions. You weren't supposed to endure long enough to weather the storm, but you did. And that single act of defiance exposed the flaw in their design. They had developed strategies to manage rebellion, but not resilience. They had devised methods to punish individuals, but not to deter someone who could withstand punishment without losing their inner fire. And so you became the glitch that shut down their program. The reason your presence rattles entire industries and structures is because they never accounted for someone like you. They can predict trends, manipulate masses, and even steer culture. But they can't control someone who has broken free from needing their validation. They didn't program for authenticity because authenticity is unhackable. They didn't program for someone who could discern truth in a world built on illusions. They didn't program for individuals who carry a strength that doesn't originate from within themselves. That's why the system fights you so fiercely. It's not just trying to silence you. It's attempting to debug itself to repair the crack you exposed by existing outside of its control. You became the living proof that their design isn't flawless, and that's the one thing they cannot afford the world to see. You weren't merely another obstacle. They can manage obstacles. You became the firewall they hadn't anticipated, the one they could never prepare for, the one that reveals just how fragile their so-called unbreakable system truly is. Number 4, you dismantled what they believed was untouchable. The industry has always thrived on the illusion of being untouchable. It wraps itself in layers of influence, money, reputation, and fear, convincing the masses that nothing and no one can bring it down. To most people, it appears as a fortress too high to scale, too thick to breach, too well guarded to even consider trying. That illusion alone is what keeps millions in silence, too afraid to challenge what seems invincible. But your defiance shattered that illusion. You demonstrated that the so-called unbreakable isn't truly unbreakable at all. It's merely a carefully staged performance, and one unshakable soul is enough to make the entire act collapse. The moment you refuse to yield, you reveal something they desperately wanted to conceal. Their power only works when people play along. Their control relies on compliance, not genuine strength. And once you stood firm, you tore down the curtain that concealed their weakness. Suddenly, what appeared indestructible began to crumble. Their influence wavered. Their confidence trembled. The fear they used as their most potent weapon started to lose its grip because your courage proved it could be resisted. That's the power of one act of defiance in a world built on manipulation. It forces everyone watching to question what they thought was real. If one person could stand against it and not be destroyed, then perhaps it was never as powerful as they claimed. That kind of revelation spreads quickly, even if unspoken, and it destabilizes entire structures from the inside out. Your stand wasn't just about your survival. It was about pulling the mask off an empire that had convinced the world it was beyond reach. You dismantled what they believed was untouchable, and now the illusion of their power will never shine as brightly again. Their so-called fortress has been marked with cracks, and no matter how much they attempt to repair it, people will always remember that it was you who proved it could fall. Number 5, you forced them to expose themselves. Powerful structures and systems are built on secrecy. They thrive by operating in the shadows, manipulating quietly, and presenting a polished face to the public while concealing the ugly machinery that operates beneath. That's why your resistance was so costly to them. By pushing back, you didn't just defend yourself, you forced them out of hiding. They had to reveal what they never wanted anyone to see: their tactics, their motives, and just how desperate they truly were to maintain control. When you refused to play along, they had to show their hand. Suddenly, subtle tactics were no longer sufficient. They had to increase the pressure, become louder, more aggressive, and in doing so, they exposed the very game they'd been playing all along. That's the nature of systems of power. They rely on illusion. They need to convince people that their authority is natural, unquestionable, and absolute. But once they're cornered, their behavior betrays them. The cracks appear, the mask slips, desperation speaks louder than threats. And here's the twist: your silence never would have achieved that. If you had yielded, they could have continued unchecked, hidden and secure. But your pushback forced exposure, and exposure is the one thing they cannot control. They can spin narratives, bury evidence, and rewrite history. But once people see the truth with their own eyes, something changes forever. You didn't just block their attack, you ruined their cover. That cost them more than any defeat you could have inflicted directly. Because now everyone watching, whether they admit it or not, has glimpsed what lies beneath the facade. The respect, the fear, the untouchable image they worked so hard to protect has been compromised. And the more they scramble to fix it, the more obvious their weakness becomes. In attempting to bring you down, they ended up exposing themselves. That's the kind of loss they cannot recover from, because once exposed, power never shines the same again. Number 6, you saved more people than you'll ever know. What makes your stand so extraordinary is that its impact cannot be measured in numbers or applause. You'll never fully grasp the extent of the people you saved, because freedom, when secured, often goes unnoticed. Every soul that didn't fall victim because of your resistance will continue with their lives unaware that the trap was already set for them, and that you were the one who dismantled it before it could close. That's the hidden burden of choosing truth. Your battles are rarely just about you, and your victories often remain invisible to those who benefit from them the most. The truth is, the system counted on silence, on no one intervening, on no one being strong enough to hold the line. Had you yielded, the attack would have gained traction and spread, tightening its grip on millions who weren't prepared to see it or resist it. But your defiance stopped that chain reaction in its tracks. You blocked something before it could multiply, before it could disguise itself as normal, and before it could shape entire generations. That's the kind of victory that history will never record, but heaven itself keeps track of. There are people walking free today, pursuing their dreams, building their lives, and making choices without ever realizing they were only able to do so because you stood in the fire when it mattered most. They will never trace their freedom back to you, but it doesn't diminish your stand's monumental significance. In fact, that's what makes it even greater. Your victory wasn't about recognition, it was about protection. You saved more people than you'll ever know, and that's the beauty and the weight of it. The freedom you secured cannot be quantified, but it can be felt in the paths people still get to take, in the lives that were never derailed, and in the futures that remain untouched by chains they'll never even see. Your fight became their shield, and though they may never thank you, the immeasurable freedom they walk in is the proof of your unseen victory. Number 7, your existence became evidence. They built their power on the belief that no one could resist them. That was their strongest weapon, not just control, but the idea that control was absolute. If people could be convinced that resistance was pointless, then most would never even try. And for a long time, that strategy worked. They kept people in line with fierce silence and the illusion that their grip was unshakable. But then you came along and your very existence undermined the narrative they fought so hard to protect. Your life became the contradiction they couldn't afford. By standing firm, surviving what was supposed to break you and refusing to yield where others did, you became evidence that their domination was not total. Evidence doesn't need to speak loudly. It only needs to exist, and you exist. That alone exposes their weakness in ways no argument or theory ever could. People may ignore voices, but they can't deny proof staring them in the face. Your survival is that proof. Your strength is that proof. Your refusal to crumble is that proof. And here's the thing, once evidence exists, it can't be erased. They can slander you, distort your story, or try to bury your name, but the reality remains someone resisted and someone overcame. That fact alone shatters the myth of invincibility they worked generations to build. It tells the world that domination can be broken, control isn't final, and freedom is possible. That truth spreads silently, but it spreads powerfully. Whether people realize it or not, your life shifted the conversation. You redefined what's possible. Even those who pretend not to notice have to grapple with the reality that you stand as living proof against their lies. You became the evidence they never planned for, the walking contradiction to their power, the undeniable reminder that resistance isn't just possible, it's real. And once that proof exists, their illusion of absolute control can never fully recover. Number 8, you ended a spell others didn't even see. What came against you wasn't obvious. It wasn't disguised as an enemy. It was disguised as culture, entertainment, influence, and distraction. That's why most people never recognized it for what it was. They consumed it, embraced it, even celebrated it, not realizing it was slowly conditioning them, dulling their discernment, and tightening a grip around their lives. The attack was subtle by design. It wasn't meant to alarm people. It was meant to creep in unnoticed until it became normal. But you saw it. You felt the weight others couldn't name, and instead of joining the crowd, you broke the spell. That's what makes your role so vital. Others were too immersed to notice anything was wrong. They thought they were simply enjoying trends, following what was popular, or keeping up with the times. Meanwhile, something toxic was weaving itself into their thoughts and habits. You stood where they couldn't. You discerned what they missed, and by resisting, you didn't just protect yourself. You shattered a deception that had already wrapped itself around millions. This is why individuals attuned to truth are set apart. You're wired to notice the things others overlook. You can feel when something looks harmless on the surface but carries a darker agenda beneath. It often makes you feel isolated because while everyone else is laughing, celebrating, or moving with the crowd, you're the one shaking your head, feeling the heaviness behind it. But that very ability is what gave you the strength to end what others didn't even see coming. The spell lost its grip the moment you refused to bow to it. Suddenly cracks appeared in what looked flawless. The charm didn't work on you, and that exposed it for what it truly was. Even if most people don't realize what happened, the atmosphere shifted because of your stand. What was spreading unchecked met resistance. And once resistance is introduced, deception can no longer hold the same power. You broke something that would have enslaved countless souls without their awareness. You ended a spell others didn't even know existed. And in doing so, you protected them from a prison they never would have seen until it was too late. Number 9, you're the reason they're now scrambling. The changes you're witnessing around you aren't random. The sudden pivots, the new storylines, the industry-wide attempts to rebrand themselves, those aren't the natural evolution of culture, they're damage control. They're scrambling because you forced a crack in the very foundation they were standing on. And now they're desperate to patch it up before the world notices just how unstable it really is. When you refused to yield, it exposed a flaw in their system, and once that flaw was revealed, they lost the luxury of moving at their own pace. They were forced into panic mode. That's why everything looks rushed, inconsistent, and contradictory. They're putting out fires that you ignited simply by standing unshakable. They wanted control, not exposure. But your presence brought exposure anyway, and now their only option is to scramble for survival. Look closely at the shifts happening. Things they once promoted with pride are suddenly being repackaged under new names. Messages they pushed aggressively are being walked back. Narratives they swore by are being abandoned mid-sentence. This isn't creativity, it's desperation. They're trying to rewrite themselves before too many people realize they were wrong from the beginning. And the reason they have to do that is because of the fracture your resistance created. They didn't expect one person to disrupt them. They didn't expect one act of defiance to throw their entire machinery off balance. But that's the power of standing for truth. You don't just resist for yourself, you shift atmospheres, you interrupt programs, you break cycles, and the ripple effects of that disruption reach farther than you know. So now they're scrambling, trying to appear composed, while their foundation shakes under the weight of the truth you exposed. They'll never admit it out loud, but their chaos is the clearest evidence of your victory. What was once stable is now shaky. What once felt permanent is now temporary, and deep down they know you're the reason they're fighting to keep it all from collapsing. Number 10. You altered the script they had written for generations. What came against you wasn't some short-term scheme. It was a script written long before you even arrived, a plan designed to unfold quietly over decades. These systems don't think in days or months. They think in generations. They plant ideas, set traps, and normalize patterns that are meant to shape culture long after the originators are gone. That's why your stand was so disruptive. You didn't just resist something small in the moment. You tore into a storyline that was meant to control entire futures. When you refused to play your assigned role, you didn't just free yourself. You created a break in a carefully crafted narrative. Whole chapters of their playbook depended on your compliance. You were supposed to fall so that others would follow. You were supposed to lose so that hopelessness could be reinforced. You were supposed to be another example that resistance is futile. But by defying that role, you ripped pages out of their script, and in doing so, you left gaps they cannot replace. This is why the aftermath looks so chaotic. They're scrambling, trying to improvise where the script used to guide them. But generations of planning can't just be rewritten overnight. Every page you destroyed took with it years of investment, years of preparation, and years of psychological conditioning meant to keep the masses asleep. And now those holes stand as evidence that their plan isn't as airtight as they wanted everyone to believe. You altered more than a moment. You altered momentum. The chain reaction they counted on has been broken, and that's something they can't fix. They can patch, they can distract, they can try to rebrand, but the original blueprint is no longer intact, and that's the kind of disruption that can't be undone. So while the world may not see it clearly, you've already shifted history. By tearing into the script they wrote for generations, you ensured that their story will never play out the way they imagined. They wanted a future built on control, but you created holes they will never fill, and those gaps will echo far beyond your lifetime. Number 11, you weaponized their own silence against them. Silence has always been one of their strongest tools. It keeps secrets buried, it protects reputations, and it maintains the illusion that nothing is wrong. For a long time, that silence worked in their favor. People didn't question it because it looked like dignity, neutrality, or wisdom. But when you stood up, you flipped the script. Suddenly, their silence was no longer protection, it was evidence. You turned what they relied on most into the very weapon that disarmed them. You didn't stay quiet. You spoke, you resisted, you exposed. And in doing so, you forced a contrast. The louder your stand became, the more noticeable their silence was. People started to realize that their refusal to speak wasn't because they were above the fight. It was because they were complicit in it. They weren't neutral. They were invested. And once that truth became visible, their silence began to work against them. That's the power of courage. It doesn't just inspire others. It unmasks cowards. Your voice highlighted their absence. Your action revealed their passivity. And in a world where perception is everything, that was the kind of exposure they couldn't control. They wanted you to be isolated, mocked, and dismissed. Instead, their silence betrayed them while your defiance spoke volumes. And here's the twist, they can't fix it. If they suddenly start speaking now, it looks forced and fake. If they remain quiet, they look guilty. Either way, they've lost the control silence once gave them. You weaponized the very thing they thought was untouchable. This is what individuals aligned with truth do without even realizing it. You shift the battlefield. You make their strongest strategies collapse under their own weight. What once shielded them has now become a mirror reflecting their weakness. And all of it happened because you refused to let your voice be buried. You exposed their silence for what it truly was, complicity. And once that exposure happened, there was no going back. Their silence could never protect them again. Number 12. You didn't just survive, you created aftershocks. Survival is one thing. Anyone can make it through a storm and call it survival. But what you did went far beyond that. You didn't just survive, you broke through in a way that sent tremors into places you may never set foot in. Your stand created aftershocks that reached industries, systems, and people who will never publicly admit you were the reason they shifted. But deep down, they know your defiance cracked something in them. The truth is, breakthroughs aren't quiet. They ripple, they disturb, they change atmospheres. When you broke free, it wasn't just your chains that fell, it was a signal that chains in general can be broken. And that reality unsettled people who built their identities, power, and influence on the assumption that no one would ever resist. Suddenly, those who never questioned the system started second-guessing. Those who felt safe within it started feeling exposed. Those who thought they were spectators realized they were participants, and your breakthrough forced them to see it. That's why the reaction around you seemed so disproportionate. It wasn't just about you. It was about the ripple effect you triggered. People in high places began to pivot. Entire industries subtly shifted their tones. Conversations changed. Narratives that once dominated the culture began to falter. And while they'll never put your name on it, those shifts were aftershocks of your stand. It's almost ironic those who tried to crush you ended up giving you a louder voice than you could have claimed on your own. The resistance they sent your way became the amplifier of your influence. Every system that shook because of your survival testifies to the fact that you weren't just another person passing through. You were a force they couldn't contain. You didn't just survive. You created aftershocks, and those aftershocks will continue to echo long after the dust settles. Shaking foundations, sparking awakenings, and forcing changes that people will never fully trace back to you but will forever live because of you. Number 13. You proved influence isn't owned by titles. Influence has been marketed to us as something that comes with titles, money, and visibility. We're told that those with the platforms, the industry leaders, the faces on magazine covers, or the voices on stages are the ones who shape culture and decide where the world goes next. But you shattered that illusion. You proved that influence isn't about titles or status. It's about authenticity, courage, and truth. And truth carries more weight than any endorsement ever could. When you resisted, it wasn't broadcast on billboards, it wasn't funded by a corporation, and it wasn't validated by any elite circle. Yet your stand shook the ground more than campaigns backed by millions. That's because real influence doesn't flow from what people have. It flows from who they are. A title can open doors, but authenticity breaks chains. A platform can gather attention, but conviction holds it. The industry leaders people look up to often speak in safe tones, calculated messages that protect their image while avoiding real risk. Your resistance wasn't safe. It was raw, dangerous, and unfiltered, and because of that, it resonated in ways their polished statements never could. People saw something in you they couldn't find in the authorities they had been following, proof that courage still exists. Proof that someone is willing to stand even when it costs everything. That's why your influence can't be denied even if it's never acknowledged. You didn't need a platform to disrupt an entire system. You didn't need a title to shift conversations that reach millions. The very fact that your resistance forced leaders and industries to pivot shows where the real weight lies. They had the stage, but you had the substance. You proved that influence isn't owned by titles. It's owned by those who dare to live in truth, and once that's seen, it can't be unseen. People may still follow their so-called leaders, but deep down, they've already recognized where the real power is. It's not with those who play it safe. It's with those who refuse to yield. Number 14, you became the interruption that history needed. What stood against you wasn't just an isolated attack. It was a cultural rewrite in motion, a slow but deliberate attempt to shape how entire generations would think, act, and live. These kinds of attacks are never about one person. They're about embedding a mindset so deeply into society that it becomes normal. Left unchecked, it would have reshaped culture itself, erasing values, silencing truth, and replacing freedom with subtle chains. But you stood in the way, and in that moment you became the interruption that history didn't just want, it needed. Interruptions are uncomfortable because they break the flow of what seemed unstoppable. That's exactly what your presence did. You disrupted a narrative that was being written without resistance. You stopped a momentum that was gathering strength by the day. You forced the world to pause, to hesitate, to recalculate, and in doing so, you rerouted the future. Paths that were headed toward destruction shifted. Trends that were supposed to dominate for decades began to lose their hold. Conversations changed. A culture that was being rewritten to serve control and manipulation hit a wall it never expected. This is the weight of standing for truth. You don't just survive personal battles. You collide with systems and agendas that have global consequences. Your resistance altered more than your own destiny. It redirected the flow of history itself. Without your stand, the attack would have grown unchecked, embedding itself so deeply that undoing it would have taken generations. Instead, you cut it off at the root. And though many won't see it, the evidence is all around: the panic, the scrambling, the sudden shifts in tone across industries. Those are the ripples of your interruption. You forced time to split between what could have been and what now is. That's why your presence matters so profoundly. You didn't just make it through. You became the interruption that ensured history would not be written the way they intended. You rerouted the future, and nothing they do can erase the fact that you stood in the way and changed the script. Every battle you faced carried more weight than you realized. It was never just about you. It was about breaking machines that fed on millions, about exposing what hid behind illusions of power, and about dismantling systems that thought they were untouchable. With every stand, you forced the enemy to reveal its hand, to scramble in desperation, and to watch its so-called unbreakable script fall apart. You turned silence into evidence, resistance into aftershocks, and survival into proof that their domination could be broken. Your presence became the firewall they never planned for, the interruption history needed, the ripple that will echo far beyond your lifetime. You shifted atmospheres, rerouted futures, and secured freedoms for people who may never know your name, yet will walk in the space your courage created. That's the paradox of standing for truth. Your victories are often invisible, but their impact is undeniable. So remember this: you weren't called to blend in. You were called to disrupt. You weren't born to follow their script. You were born to rewrite it, and no matter how much they scramble, they can never erase the evidence you've already become. Your stand has already altered the future, and the world will never be the same. If this message resonated deeply within you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this message far and wide. Let's ignite a wave of awareness together. Welcome the anointed ones. Everybody wants to be chosen until they see what it costs. That's not just a quote. It's a beacon illuminating the path less traveled. You see people admire your gifts, your radiance, and the unwavering strength you project. But brace yourselves for a stark revelation. They don't yearn for the pain, the relentless temptations, or the countless sleepless nights etched into your journey. They crave the spotlight's warmth, but not the tempestuous storms that forged you. They covet the rewards, but shrink from the receipts meticulously itemized with sacrifice. Psychological studies reveal a fundamental human tendency to desire what we see, often neglecting the arduous price tag concealed beneath the surface. It's akin to a child's fleeting infatuation with ice cream, only to relinquish it after a mere 2 bites. The sweetness is alluring, but the ensuing discomfort was conveniently omitted from the preview. That's precisely how many perceive your gifts. They clamor for the honey without enduring the sting, the triumph without weathering the trial. And truth be told, moments arise when you yearn to relinquish your mantle to trade places with those seemingly untouched by adversity. They perceive your power as a silver platter offering oblivious to the divine crucible of fire, wilderness, and betrayal through which you were tempered. It's a twisted irony. People seek your wisdom, yet would have faltered at the first whisper of suffering. They envy your destination, but would have succumbed to exhaustion halfway through the arduous wilderness trek. This, my friends, is the enigma of the chosen. The world lusts after your gifts, yet God safeguarded them by encoding them with suffering as the impenetrable password. And mark my words, the masses lack the resolve to decipher that password. Stay with me, for what I am about to unveil will irrevocably alter your perception of your own life. Your pain was not an exercise in futility. Your temptations were not random acts of malice, and your suffering was not a divine decree of punishment. It was the indispensable key that unlocked the very gifts that define you. And the most astonishing truth, those who desire what you possess will never endure where you have been. Firstly, they crave the crown but recoil from the cross. They want the crown but refuse the cross. This statement resonates with profound truth, exposing a reality often conveniently ignored. Humanity inherently desires to appear powerful, admired, and invulnerable. When they gaze upon someone like you, chosen and blessed, their focus is solely on the luminous exterior. They yearn for the influence, the unwavering respect, the profound wisdom, and the boundless opportunities that now permeate your life. But here's the pivotal detail they overlook. These blessings did not materialize from thin air. They were painstakingly forged through a crucible of pain that others vehemently avoided. The cross represents the immense weight you bore when faith was your sole companion. It embodies the stinging rejection, the agonizing betrayal, the silent battles waged where surrender seemed the only viable option. The cross represents the sleepless nights consumed by doubt, questioning the apparent injustice of life, while others seemingly glided through effortlessly. It encompasses the temptations that threatened to consume you, the setbacks that ignited the urge to abandon your path, the ridicule that chipped away at your confidence, and the all-consuming loneliness that gnawed at your very soul. This is the excruciating reality people refuse to acknowledge. The crown, however, symbolizes the undeniable evidence of survival. It is the clarity you attained after being stripped of all illusions. It is the unwavering resilience that blossomed from the seeds of countless heartbreaks. It is the profound depth of your spirit cultivated solely through wrestling with the abyss of darkness and resolutely choosing the path of light. People marvel at your strength, yet actively avoid acknowledging the immense cross you carried to attain it. There exists a profound irony in this dichotomy. The very qualities they envy are inextricably linked to the suffering they so diligently evade. They yearn for reward without risk power, without the demanding process, and blessing without the commensurate burden. But in God's grand design, the crown is not a trinket handed out indiscriminately. It is the sacred inheritance reserved for those who steadfastly carried their cross and refused to succumb to its weight. This is the reason you are fundamentally unreplicable. They may attempt to imitate your words, your style, or even your carefully cultivated faith, but they can never duplicate the map of scars etched upon your soul. And it is precisely those scars that gave birth to your intrinsic authority. The crown is rendered meaningless without the cross. Devoid of the cross, it is merely a gaudy ornament. But when coupled with the cross, it transforms into a powerful testament. Therefore, allow them to lust after your crown. Allow them to admire it, even covet it. But they will never comprehend that its brilliance is a direct consequence of the blood you shed to earn it. And only those who have endured the agonizing weight of the cross are truly worthy to wear the crown. Secondly, your suffering is not a curse. It is a divine initiation. Your suffering is not a curse. It is a sacred initiation. This truth is particularly difficult to embrace, as suffering often masquerades as punishment. It feels as though you have been singled out for misfortune, abandoned, while others effortlessly navigate their paths. But what appears to be cruelty is in reality rigorous training. Every painful season in your life served as God's method of stripping away that which could not endure, preparing your spirit to bear the very gifts you now wield. Reflect upon this. How would you have acquired your current wisdom without experiencing the sting of betrayal, teaching you the true nature of humanity? How would you have cultivated unwavering endurance if life had consistently showered you with comfort instead of struggle? How would your faith have become unshakable if it had never been tested in the crucible of fire? What others dismiss as unfair or unlucky was in actuality the divine process of initiation, granting you access to a level of understanding that remains elusive to most. This is precisely why you possess the ability to penetrate facades with ease. It is not due to inherent suspicion, but rather because pain has honed your perception to discern truth from illusion. It is why you exude an unyielding resilience that defies explanation. Your soul has been meticulously conditioned through suffering to bend without breaking. This conditioning was not arbitrary. It was orchestrated with divine precision. God did not curse you. He introduced you to the depths of your own being, to the unyielding strength residing within you, to your ultimate calling through the portal of suffering. The reason others covet your gifts yet cannot attain them is because they vehemently reject this portal. They erroneously believe that gifts are acquired through inheritance, shortcuts, or imitation. But divine gifts do not simply fall into your lap. They are initiated through a series of trials. The sleepless nights haunted by doubt, the heartbreaks that threaten to shatter you, the failures that exposed your vulnerabilities and the temptations that nearly consumed you entirely. Each trial served as a sacred rite of passage, propelling you deeper into your divine assignment. Here lies the raw truth. Suffering is a language understood solely by those who have endured it. And once you have been initiated into this profound language, your very presence carries an undeniable weight. Others may possess mere information, but you radiate revelation because your lessons were not gleaned from textbooks. They were indelibly etched into your spirit. Therefore, your suffering was not random, nor was it a malevolent curse. It was tangible evidence of your divine selection. Others sought the gift. God granted them ease. But he offered you suffering instead, knowing that only you possessed the alchemical ability to transform pain into unparalleled power. That was your initiation, and it is why your gift remains unshakable. Thirdly, they mistake the fruit for the soil. They fixate on the fruit, overlooking the indispensable soil. That is the fundamental flaw in their perception. When they observe your life, they focus solely on the tangible results. They witness you standing tall, speaking with unwavering wisdom and moving with unshakable confidence, and erroneously assume that this is the complete narrative. They fixate on the fruit, the visible manifestation, and conveniently disregard the crucial elements required for its cultivation. But fruit does not spontaneously generate from thin air. It requires fertile soil to nourish its growth. And your soil was anything but ordinary. It was meticulously watered with your tears, richly fertilized with your unrelenting struggles, and deliberately hardened through battles that others vehemently avoided. The unvarnished truth is that people desire the bountiful fruit of your life without enduring the grueling labor required to cultivate the dirt that birthed it. They yearn for the desired outcomes without investing in the necessary process, the sweetness without acknowledging the preceding bitterness. They seek your tranquility without understanding the countless nights you wrestled with the relentless grip of anxiety. They desire your wisdom without enduring the betrayal that forced you to evolve. They crave your resilience without weathering the formidable storms that molded you into an unyielding force. They naively believe that the fruit can be readily snatched, copied, or conveniently borrowed. But they fail to recognize that fruit severed from its nurturing soil rapidly deteriorates. It may appear momentarily vibrant, but it quickly rots from within. This is precisely why individuals who attempt to steal your essence or mimic your unique gift inevitably falter. They may parrot your words, but they lack the gravitas to imbue them with genuine meaning. They may adopt your style, but they cannot radiate the authentic spirit that emanates from within you. They may mimic your actions, but they can never replicate the unique composition of your soil. The soil is the wellspring of true power, and your soil was meticulously cultivated by the relentless trials of pain. It encompasses the seasons when you were buried, rendered unseen, and profoundly misunderstood. It encompasses the harrowing tests and temptations that nearly shattered you, but ultimately forged you into an even stronger being. Your abundant fruit today stands as a testament to the tribulations you endured in silence. The soil meticulously recorded every detail of your journey, data inaccessible to any other being. And the poignant irony is that those who envy the lusciousness of your fruit would have recoiled from the arduous labor of cultivating the soil. They would have surrendered at the first sign of adversity. They would have cursed God and abandoned the process altogether. They would never have possessed the fortitude to endure what you did, which is why they will never wield the same transformative power. Therefore, allow them to persist in mistaking the fruit for the soil. Allow them to believe that your success was easily attained, effortless, or instantaneous. You know the irrefutable truth. Your fruit is exceptionally rare because your soil was sacred, and that is something they can never steal or replicate. Fourthly, they want the glory but not the groaning. They crave the resounding glory but balk at the agonizing groaning that precedes it. That is the unspoken truth that people conveniently disregard when they observe you. They admire the indomitable strength you exude, the inherent grace that accompanies your every move, and the innate ability to rise above every challenge designed to dismantle you. And they desire to possess that same triumphant narrative. They yearn for the thunderous applause, the unwavering recognition, and the fleeting moments when you stand resplendently tall, commanding the admiration of the masses for your extraordinary resilience. But they remain blissfully ignorant of the countless nights you groaned so profoundly that your chest felt as though it would implode. They are unaware of the torrents of tears that left your eyes swollen and inflamed, the desperate prayers that seemed to vanish into the ether, and the crushing weight that nearly suffocated your very existence. Those agonizing groans were not indicators of weakness. They were the unmistakable labor pains preceding a monumental birth. Every desperate sob, every heart-rending cry of anguish, every silent plea to the heavens represented the sacred process of something extraordinary being birthed within you. The transformative gifts you now possess were not bestowed upon you effortlessly. They emerged through a crucible of agony that shattered your previous self. Your profound wisdom, your unwavering inner peace, your unyielding strength, none of these invaluable attributes were acquired freely. They were meticulously purchased in the groaning and the moments when words proved inadequate, and your spirit was compelled to communicate through cries too profound to be articulated. But the world gravitates towards the captivating allure of glory. They embrace the polished final product, the meticulously curated version of your personal narrative. They revel in the radiant glow that follows the dissipating storm clouds, but vehemently despise enduring the tempest itself. They mistakenly believe that they can attain the same coveted crown by merely replicating your outward shine, failing to comprehend that the groaning served as the essential currency required to procure it. Without the agonizing groaning, there would be no magnificent glory. Without the searing anguish, there would be no semblance of legitimate authority. This is the fundamental reason why so many individuals admire what you have attained, yet inevitably fail to sustain it. They yearn for the intoxicating applause, but recoil from the excruciating agony that carved it into the very depths of your soul. They seek the compelling testimony, but vehemently reject the agonizing test that preceded it. They desire the desirable outcome but refuse to invest in the challenging process required to achieve it. But the unassailable truth remains that the groaning is the crucible that forges authenticity. It is the indispensable element that enables your words to resonate more deeply, that infuses your presence with undeniable weight, and that renders your gifts impervious to replication. Therefore, let them relentlessly pursue the fleeting allure of glory if they so choose. They will never truly understand that the secret behind your enduring shine lies in the agonizing groaning they never witnessed, the profound anguish they never perceived, and the shattering breaking that only you were strong enough to endure. And that is the immutable reason why your glory remains untouchable. It was painstakingly birthed in the sacred labor room of pain. Fifthly, God didn't just give you gifts, He assigned you wounds as teachers. God did not merely bestow gifts upon you. He deliberately assigned you wounds to serve as invaluable teachers. This profound truth cuts deeply because it unveils the reason why your wisdom carries a weight that others can never hope to imitate. The very wounds that once threatened to annihilate you, the ones that left you gasping for air and clinging desperately to the remnants of your strength, ultimately transformed into the very classrooms where you learned invaluable lessons that no book, no mentor, no easy path could have ever provided. You were not merely presented with information, you were meticulously instructed by pain itself. Each unique wound left behind an indelible scar, and each hard-earned scar blossomed into a unique language of its own. You mastered the complex language of betrayal by enduring the sharp sting of being stabbed in the back by those you once held in the highest regard. You became fluent in the art of unwavering endurance by simply surviving countless nights when you genuinely believed you would not see the dawn. You cultivated the invaluable language of discernment by being deceived so convincingly that it compelled you to sharpen your perceptions beyond the limitations of mere words. These profound wounds were not random occurrences, they were purposefully assigned divine assignments. They were meticulously tailored experiences designed to shape your soul into a precise instrument capable of wielding your gifts with unwavering skill. People are naturally drawn to your clarity, your wisdom, and your innate depth. But they seek to attain these qualities without paying the exorbitant tuition fee of intense suffering. They desire to master the language but recoil from the scorching fire that forged it into your very bones. They long to deliver the compelling testimony but vehemently reject the arduous trial that is an absolute prerequisite. But the agonizing trial is the only conceivable means by which the transformative testimony can ever come into existence. Devoid of those meticulously cultivated wounds, your carefully chosen words would ring hollow. Absent the pain that seared its mark upon your being, your presence would lack the authentic authority it now undeniably commands. The sublime beauty of this seemingly paradoxical truth lies in this: your wounds did not diminish you. They elevated you to unforeseen heights. They trained you in a manner that the fleeting embrace of success never could have accomplished. Success often fosters arrogance and pride, while wounds instill humility and profound empathy. Success can garner fleeting admiration, while wounds forge a profound connection with the very essence of humanity. That is the underlying reason why others perceive something distinctly different when you speak or when you move. It is not merely raw talent at play. It is the unadulterated truth intricately etched into the resilient fabric of your scar tissue. Therefore, allow them to relentlessly desire your awe-inspiring gift. Allow them to envy the effortless grace with which you carry yourself. What they will never fully grasp is that the very reason your gifts are so exceptionally rare is because they were painstakingly birthed out of wounds that they would never possess the strength to survive. Your scars serve as an irrefutable certificate of merit. Your pain stands as undeniable proof of your unwavering commitment, and that is precisely why you now walk in a realm of sacred knowledge that they can never hope to steal. It was painstakingly written in your own precious blood. Sixthly, they see power but don't see the death behind it. They marvel at the outward display of your incredible power but fail to acknowledge the profound death that preceded it. People admire the unyielding strength you exude, the inherent authority woven into your presence, the compelling manner in which your words carry such profound weight. But they conveniently disregard the immeasurable cost you paid to acquire these attributes. Every exceptional gift you possess today was not cultivated in an environment of carefree comfort. It was meticulously birthed in the crucible of profound death. Some integral part of you had to be deliberately buried in order to facilitate the emergence of something infinitely greater. What they perceive as power is not the byproduct of effortless ease, but rather the direct result of agonizing crucifixion. There was the inevitable death of the unyielding ego, the devastating moments when life humbled you so profoundly that pride had no other recourse but to capitulate. You were relentlessly thrust into situations where your personal reputation, your tireless efforts, and your inherent strength were rendered utterly meaningless. You eventually learned that true survival did not stem from self-aggrandizement, but rather from unwavering surrender to a divine purpose. There was the excruciating death of corrosive pride, the countless humiliations, the stinging rejections, the times you were deliberately overlooked or grossly underestimated, until you ultimately understood that the validation of others could never define your intrinsic worth. And there was the agonizing death of comforting familiarity, the tumultuous seasons where you tragically lost that which provided you with a sense of stability and security. The times when God deliberately removed you from the perceived safety of your comfort zone in order to compel you to embrace the arduous path of what was absolutely necessary. What people now witness is the miraculous manifestation of resurrection. They see the resilient version of yourself that emerged from the very graves others assumed would forever confine you. They fail to grasp that your radiant light originates from traversing the darkest depths and willingly dying to the person you once believed yourself to be. Resurrection is never bestowed freely. It relentlessly demands a preceding crucifixion. It mandates the utter demise of the person you erroneously believed yourself to be, so that the person you were truly destined to become can finally emerge. That is precisely why when others attempt to imitate you, it never resonates with the same intensity and transformative power. They crave the outward appearance of your unyielding power without enduring the necessary deaths that birthed it. They yearn for the triumphant resurrection narrative without bearing the heavy cross that made it an absolute necessity. But resurrection is not something that can be readily faked or easily imitated. It exudes an unmistakable fragrance of authenticity that can only be acquired through traversing the perilous valley of death and ultimately rising again. Therefore, when they witness the undeniable power that emanates from you, let them marvel in awe. Let them succumb to envy if they so choose. What they are truly witnessing is not mere strength, but the unwavering spirit of ultimate survival, not merely raw authority, but triumphant ascension. You stand as irrefutable living proof that something inherent must willingly die before something magnificent can truly live. That is the elusive secret that they will never fully grasp. Your remarkable power is not a commodity that can be borrowed or stolen. It is a miraculous force that has been painstakingly resurrected. Seventhly, they want the oil but not the crushing. They desire the sacred oil but vehemently reject the excruciating crushing required to extract it. People admire your divine anointing, the innate grace that envelops you, and the seemingly effortless manner in which doors of opportunity swing open for you while remaining stubbornly shut for others. They erroneously attribute these blessings to mere luck, unearned favoritism, or some hidden advantage. But they fail to comprehend that precious oil never flows without the application of immense pressure. Your divine anointing did not materialize as a gentle, unearned blessing. It was painfully pressed out of you through agonizing seasons of bearing unbearable weight. You did not spontaneously awaken one morning brimming with profound wisdom and unyielding authority. You were relentlessly crushed into it through a series of agonizing trials. The crushing constituted the agonizing betrayals that left you utterly shattered. It encompassed the demoralizing failure that stripped away your cherished self-confidence. It included the seemingly endless dark nights when you desperately begged for relief from the torment only to have your pleas seemingly ignored. It encompassed the devastating moments when life relentlessly pressed down upon you with such ferocity that you genuinely believed you would not survive the ordeal. And yet, paradoxically, within those very moments of agonizing breaking, something profoundly holy was being meticulously released. The immense weight that threatened to completely destroy you was simultaneously the force that squeezed the divine oil from the very core of your being. That is the excruciating aspect that others vehemently avoid. They yearn for the coveted oil because it shines with captivating brilliance, because it exudes persuasive influence, and because it relentlessly draws attention to its unique properties. But they steadfastly reject the associated crushing because crushing inherently entails pain, immense loss, and ultimate surrender. Crushing represents the agonizing process that strips you bare of all illusions, leaving you with nothing but the unvarnished truth. Crushing is what ruthlessly eliminates the comforting familiarity of the known, thereby facilitating the transformative birth of purpose. Devoid of the excruciating crushing, there can be no flow of sacred oil. Devoid of the immense weight, there can be no transformative flow. And here lies the profound truth: oil cannot be readily faked or easily counterfeited. One may attempt to mimic your distinctive style, imitate your unique voice, or even plagiarize your carefully cultivated knowledge. but they can never hope to replicate the unquantifiable essence of the sacred oil. Oil exudes a unique fragrance of inherent authenticity that can only be acquired through being relentlessly pressed by the scorching fire of adversity. The tempestuous storms of life and the devastating heartbreaks that test the very limits of human endurance. That is why when you move with divine purpose, others instinctively feel it resonating within them. It is not a mere performance devoid of substance, it is the undeniable manifestation of a palpable presence. Therefore, when they succumb to the insidious grip of envy as they witness your sacred oil, remember this fundamental truth. They envy the desired result, not the grueling process that preceded it. They crave the visible flow that emanates from you now. But they would have inevitably surrendered under the immense pressure of the excruciating crushing that was absolutely necessary to produce it. What they erroneously perceive as unearned favor is in reality the unwavering spirit of triumphant survival. What they mistakenly attribute to mere blessing is in its truest form the tangible manifestation of enduring resilience. Your anointing with sacred oil cost you absolutely everything, and that exorbitant price is precisely what renders it utterly untouchable. The agonizing crushing was the crucible that meticulously forged you into the magnificent being you are today. And that is the immutable reason why your divine anointing remains eternally potent. Eighthly, your pain was not random. It was meticulously sculpted for divine precision. Your pain was not a matter of mere chance. It was deliberately sculpted for unparalleled precision. This profound truth is inherently uncomfortable because pain often manifests as unpredictable chaos, a punitive measure, or life spiraling uncontrollably out of our grasp. But what outwardly appeared to be wanton destruction was in actuality meticulously calculated divine design. Every devastating heartbreak, every agonizing betrayal, every stinging rejection was not devoid of purpose. It was strategically surgical. God was actively chiseling away at the parts of your being that were incompatible with your divinely ordained purpose, meticulously shaping you into an indispensable tool capable of fulfilling your ultimate calling. Reflect upon the searing sting of rejection. It inflicted immense pain, leaving you feeling undeniably unwanted and fundamentally unworthy. But rejection was never about inherent inadequacy. It was always a calculated act of divine redirection. Every door that vehemently slammed shut in your face was not a random act of chaos. It was a calculated instance of deliberate carving. It was a purposeful act of removing you from individuals, locations, and predetermined paths that were simply incapable of handling the magnificent weight of your extraordinary gift. Then came the agonizing sting of betrayal. Painful without a doubt, but betrayal stripped away your naive innocence. It gifted you with a heightened sense of discernment that no textbook could ever hope to impart. It taught you to discern tone and motive beyond the mere words spoken, to feel the underlying energy behind carefully crafted smiles. That was not random happenstance. It was a carefully designed act of precision, and the all-consuming heartbreak that inevitably followed. That was the most excruciating cut of all. It mercilessly broke you open, not with the intent to destroy you, but to carve out a sacred space where profound empathy and unwavering compassion could readily flourish. Absent the transformative experience of heartbreak, you would inevitably lack the profound depth required to truly connect with others, to effectively heal their wounded spirits, or to speak with the unwavering authority that accompanies true understanding. Heartbreak imbued your every carefully chosen word with an undeniable authenticity that resonates with the masses. This is precisely why your gift resonates with such extraordinary accuracy and resonates with such a profound impact. It is not merely the fact that you managed to survive unspeakable suffering. It is that you were deliberately sculpted by it. Your pain meticulously refined your innate perception, sharpened your intuitive spirit, and ruthlessly trimmed away all lingering illusions. Every surgical cut had a distinct purpose. Every devastating loss had a carefully designed function. You are not simply bearing random meaningless scars. You are carrying meticulously crafted marks of divine design. People are naturally drawn to the tool you have become. You operating in an environment of profound clarity, unyielding wisdom, and indomitable strength. But they vehemently reject the painful chiseling required to bring it into existence. They recoil from the agonizing shaping that relentlessly scraped away at lingering comfort, inflated pride, and cherished illusions. They yearn for the exquisite masterpiece without enduring the agonizing process of the sculptor's sharp blade. But the blade is what imbued you with the precision you so effortlessly display. Therefore, your pain was not senselessly wasted. It was not a cruel stroke of bad luck, and it was certainly not a manifestation of meaningless suffering. It was an integral part of the transformative process of divine sculpting. What now manifests as seemingly effortless power within you was diligently purchased with the painful surgical cuts of the past. You now stand sharp and resolute because you were deliberately shaped. And that unique shaping is something that no one can ever steal or replicate, because they would lack the fortitude to survive the intense chiseling that created it. Ninthly, they want access without atonement. They crave unfettered access without undergoing the necessary atonement. That is the concealed truth that underpins why so many relentlessly envy what you possess but can never truly hold or wield it. People witness your unyielding strength, your profound wisdom, your unparalleled clarity, and they mistakenly assume that these qualities are something they can easily step into, as if it were a vacant position to be readily claimed or a prestigious title to be conveniently borrowed. But what they fail to recognize is that your divine gift is not entirely unguarded or unprotected. It is diligently shielded by the very pain that they mock, actively avoid, and vehemently despise. Your extended seasons of suffering were not solely about the act of mere survival. They were about enduring a cleansing fire designed to refine your very essence. Every agonizing betrayal you endured, every devastating heartbreak you meticulously carried, every season of crippling lack and humiliating rejection served to burn away the parts of you that were no longer aligned with your divinely ordained purpose. Inherent pride was reduced to ashes. The inflated ego was ruthlessly extinguished, and the naive attachments that once defined you were irrevocably consumed. That transformative fire purified you, thereby enabling your exceptional gift to flow unimpeded, free from any contamination. Devoid of that painful but essential cleansing, the magnificent gift would have inevitably been mishandled or catastrophically misused. That is precisely why God did not effortlessly bestow it upon you. He purposefully thrust it into your capable hands amidst the searing flames because fire inherently reveals who can be truly trusted with immense power. This is precisely where the vital concept of atonement comes into play. Atonement is not predicated upon attaining flawlessness. It is about undergoing the meticulous process of purification. You are inevitably purified through the relentless trials of pain, through the crucible of excruciating tests, through the seductive allure of temptations that relentlessly compel you to choose unwavering integrity over convenient compromise. You bled profusely for the unhindered access you now possess. You suffered immensely for the profound authority you now wield, and that agonizing suffering served as your indispensable act of atonement. It is what ultimately granted you the inherent right to stand resolutely in the unique position you now occupy. Those who naively seek to bypass that indispensable process erroneously believe that they can simply steal your coveted place. Conveniently copy your transformative ways or flawlessly imitate your mesmerizing presence. But they are profoundly mistaken, for they fail to comprehend that without undergoing the excruciating act of atonement, their grasping hands will inevitably be burned when they dare to touch what you have been divinely entrusted to carry. They may be able to mimic your well-chosen words, but they will inevitably choke under the immense weight of the true meaning. They may attempt to borrow your meticulously crafted style, but they will ultimately lack the internal fire required to sustain it. They may desperately attempt to gain the sought-after access, but without undergoing the indispensable cleansing, they will inevitably collapse under the weight of that which you have been meticulously purified to responsibly handle. This is precisely what renders you utterly untouchable. Your magnificent gift is not only sealed by divine favor, but is further fortified by the exorbitant price you willingly paid in agonizing pain. The devastating suffering that they so vehemently despised was the very mechanism that locked your exceptional gift away from the clutches of counterfeit hands. So to bring it all together, what we've explored is this: the path to becoming who you're truly meant to be isn't always easy. The gifts you possess, the strength you radiate, they're often forged in the fires of adversity. Don't let anyone minimize your journey or make you feel guilty for the trials you've overcome. Your pain wasn't random. It was a sacred initiation, a meticulous sculpting that prepared you for something extraordinary. Embrace your scars, for they are the map of your resilience, the testament to your unique and powerful story. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What resonates with you the most? Have you experienced this dynamic in your own life? Share your stories. Ask your questions. Let's create a space for understanding and encouragement in the comments below. And if this message resonated with you, please subscribe. That way you won't miss out on future insights, discussions, and maybe even a little bit of inspiration to help you navigate your own incredible path. Thanks for being here. For being here, for being here, for being here, for being here, for being here. Welcome, chosen ones. The truest examination of your spirit doesn't occur within the confines of any institution. It unfolds in the quiet solitude of your personal battles, where the audience is absent and the stakes are immeasurably high. Remember this truth, for it precedes even the grandest designs of fate. Scientists estimate the human body's resilience to be around 40 days without sustenance. Yet consider this profound truth: your inner being has persevered through what felt like epochs of spiritual deprivation, yearning for recognition, solace, and clarity. Despite the trials, you remain a beacon of strength, standing firm and undefeated. This is not mere existence. It signifies a triumph over an invisible challenge that eludes the awareness of many. The unique nature of spiritual trials lies in their lack of preparation. There is no syllabus, no friendly warning such as, "Tomorrow you will face a test of patience that will push you to the brink." Instead, life thrusts you into the crucible, awaiting to see if you emerge as mere ashes or are transformed into gold. You have emerged, gleaming brilliantly. Ironically, numerous individuals falter, believing the objective is to evade suffering. However, you have understood that it involves enduring without sacrificing the essence of your soul. Divine favor is bestowed upon you not for choosing an easy path, but for remaining steadfast amidst pressures to compromise your principles. Honestly, if you faced a multiple-choice quiz during those times, you likely would have chosen all of the above just to expedite the process. But this was a crucible designed to strip away the superficial and reveal the authentic you. That moment has arrived. The experiences you endured were not random acts of suffering, but validations of your character. The reward is coming abundant and overflowing. Prepare yourselves, because this journey is not just about endurance. It's about unveiling truths that were hidden. Firstly, your worth was measured in silence, not applause. This is a critical point most overlook. The divine did not place you before an adoring crowd to assess the depth of your faith. Instead, you were deliberately isolated from the clamor, the affirmations, and the superficial accolades. The focus was on the choices you made when no one was present to validate you. It is simple to project loyalty when the eyes of others are upon you. It is easy to appear devout when incentives are offered or when your efforts are openly recognized. Isolation dissolves these veils. The trial was intended to determine if your principles could endure without an audience, if your dedication was genuine even when unacknowledged. Your success indicates that your faith is not a performance but an intrinsic part of who you are. Your capacity to withstand loneliness, silence, and rejection amplified your strength. You refused to allow these circumstances to dictate your decisions. In moments of darkness, when doubt overshadowed encouragement, you remained steadfast. You did not alter your beliefs simply because approval was absent. You did not abandon truth due to anonymity. These unseen decisions were closely monitored. Your triumph is invaluable. Praise can be easily manufactured or manipulated. However, your true self in isolation is undeniable and unadulterated. It represents the honest proof of your inner being. The divine sought tangible evidence of your ability to remain firm without external support. The silence you experienced was not punitive but an evaluation. It calculated your ability to manage blessings without being corrupted. By succeeding in solitude, you have demonstrated that you can be entrusted with increased responsibilities. The recognition that will soon be upon you is not merely human admiration. It is a celestial affirmation far more meaningful than any public accolade. You were tested in the absence of an audience, and you emerged victorious. The forthcoming blessings will not just be recognitions. They will serve as indisputable validations of your spirit. Secondly, you have proven your capacity to bear pain without inflicting it on others. This alone distinguishes you, as pain can often corrupt individuals. Many who experience hardship lash out, harming those around them for wounds they did not cause. You, however, bore the weight of your anguish without turning it into a weapon. This exceptional strength has been recognized as a profound accomplishment. The greatest challenge lies not in enduring the pain, but in preventing it from transforming you into the very thing you abhor. Anger naturally surfaces when betrayal cuts deep. Resentment can feel justifiable in the face of injustice. You consciously chose not to allow these emotions to dictate your behavior, enduring personal suffering without inflicting harm on those around you. This is what differentiates a wounded individual from one who becomes corrupted. It would have been easy to react, redirecting your frustrations toward anyone who crossed your path. Many make the mistake of equating the expression of pain with relief, but that only spreads the negativity that caused their initial suffering. You resisted that temptation. You have demonstrated the ability to suffer internally while still protecting those around you from the storm. This restraint does not come from willpower, but from an understanding that your spirit is far too valuable to be compromised. You are considered reliable because bearing pain without inflicting it upon others demonstrates the ability to handle power without abusing it. By enduring heartbreak, betrayal, and unfairness without becoming cruel, you have shown your readiness to receive blessings without succumbing to pride. Pain was your training, providing you with self-control, empathy, and emotional maturity. That is why the reward carries so much significance. You emerge not only alive, but with integrity and compassion. The trial was never about feeling pain, it was about pain changing your character. You have proven that even during times of suffering, your essence remains intact. For this reason, abundance will be poured into your life to heal and uplift others. This is because you will not use it to spread negativity, but to construct, repair, and improve. Thirdly, you ended cycles that trapped earlier generations. Your test was weighted with profound meaning for one of the deepest reasons. Your experiences were not just about your life. Rather, they concerned a pattern that was repeated throughout your ancestral line, one that trapped those who came before and set traps for future generations. Your family faced many trials, but instead of overcoming them, they succumbed to the pressure. Some became cynical. Others abandoned their goals or compromised their ethics. These failures triggered a chain reaction, producing a spiritual pattern that continued to repeat itself. You were born into the center of this same storm. Instead of being defeated by the storm, you remained firm. Your endurance became a turning point. Others yielded, but you resisted. Others surrendered, but you persevered. That is why your experiences were extremely difficult. You were struggling not only with personal difficulties, but with unresolved issues from your ancestral line. Your burdens often felt overwhelming as you struggled with battles that were not fully yours. However, you were trusted with these burdens because it was known that you would do what others could not bring an end to them. Passing the test means more than simply surviving your challenges. It means breaking a historical pattern of failure. By breaking this cycle, you not only liberated yourself but altered the destiny of your family. Future descendants will benefit from your strength. They will not have to overcome these trials because you will have defeated them. This is why the reward is greater than you can imagine. When you pass a challenge that involves generations, the benefits extend far beyond your life, creating a legacy. You are rewarded not only for your endurance, but for the challenges you have prevented. The curse ends here, the chains are broken, the cycle is complete. You are proof that failure is not inherited, but that destiny is. Future generations will live with increased freedom, strength, and peace because of your resistance to the challenges that consumed those who came before. Fourthly, you mastered silence without disappearing. Remaining quiet is often viewed as the only way to survive during difficult times. You transformed the quiet into a weapon of refinement. Each time you held back your thoughts, each time you resisted acting rashly, you were practicing precision. Your silence was not an absence, but a method of preparation. It sharpened your thoughts, strengthened your dedication, and enabled you to understand what others trapped by noise could not. This trial was not about remaining quiet. Rather, it was about becoming a master of self-control. Many view silence as a sign of weakness, as evidence that someone has been broken. However, you have shown that restraint can be louder than a cacophony of voices. You learned the importance of when to speak, how to speak, and above all, why. Your silence became strategic, amplifying your power rather than diminishing it. Your words carried authority because they were refined in times of quiet. Remaining silent in the face of provocation, betrayal, and misunderstanding is an uncommon challenge. It requires discipline, insight, and patience. You were not made to be silent by circumstances. Instead, you permitted these circumstances to grow your inner being. Your silence enabled you to discern the motives of others, to recognize the genuine from the superficial, and to understand how manipulations can often go unnoticed amidst the noise. This mastery of silence ensures that your words are heard not only by those in your presence, but by the universe itself. This challenge was not designed to erase you. Instead, it was to teach you the value of presence even in the absence of words. In a world that prizes making noise to prove worth, you have learned that restraint is one of the greatest forms of power. Your silence did not conceal you. Instead, it revealed your inner strength. It made your voice precise, deliberate, and unstoppable. You have demonstrated that true impact is made not by the volume of your speech, but by the wisdom of your words after a time of quiet. Fifthly, you overcame what was designed to humiliate, not just injure. The anguish you felt was intended to strip you of your honor and cause you to suffer public embarrassment. Those who caused this suffering did not intend only to wound you. Rather, they sought to fracture your sense of self, transforming your suffering into a source of public shame. This level of cruelty is not often understood. Overcoming it required exceptional inner strength. Overcoming mere suffering is one thing, but overcoming shame is far more difficult. Shame aims to persuade you that other people's criticisms can negate your worth. The challenges you overcame forced you to live with disgrace without allowing it to define you. You were tasked to maintain your integrity while everyone knew of your difficulties. That level of achievement requires more than endurance. Rather, it requires self-mastery under pressure. Enduring public humiliation is challenging, but you did it without losing your identity. You did not trade your honesty for others' validation, nor did you try to hide your discomfort. Instead, every attempt to belittle or insult you was a test of your capacity to remain yourself. You overcame the trial with your integrity intact, thus demonstrating that your sense of self cannot be stolen by circumstances. Abundance is given to those who endure not only the pain, but also the whispers that cause distress. Your success means more than just a release from discomfort. Rather, it validates that you have been shown to be unbreakable in every aspect. You have shown that you can pass through difficulties with both your pain and your honor intact. What was intended to humiliate became the stage for your resilience to shine. Sixthly, you protected your heart from the enticement of revenge. The trials you have experienced were designed to entice you to repay every wrong that you had suffered. The world depends on the notion that inflicting pain on others is a valid path to justice. You prevented anger from determining your actions. Strength is measured not by the effectiveness of hurting those who have hurt you, but by the extent to which you maintain your integrity. Revenge promises fulfillment and a way to gain control over the chaos that has been caused to you. However, you have not allowed your soul to be used for retaliation. Each time you experienced the temptation to hurt others, you chose restraint. You are victorious because you have displayed that the achievement of your goals does not depend on the defeat of others. This level of restraint is an indicator of spiritual maturity. You can live with pain without becoming corrupted. While the world may teach that power is gained by striking first, you have embodied the higher truth that it is preserved by refusing to compromise your essence. You did not only survive but transcended the urge to retaliate. By keeping your heart pure, you have demonstrated the greatness of your inner being. You have shown that your character outweighs the desires to win at the expense of your soul. You overcame the trial not because the world spared you, but because you refused to let the world corrupt you. Seventh, you chose obedience over outcome. The challenges you faced were measured by whether you would follow the right path even when it seemed useless and every sign pointed to disappointment. The world trains people to chase results and measure faith by immediate gain. But this test was about something deeper: loyalty to the source, not the reward. Your obedience was not transactional. You obeyed because you knew integrity, faithfulness, and alignment with the divine matter more than temporary outcomes. Choosing obedience over outcome is rare courage because it goes against the instinct to control or predict life. When results don't match effort, when doors close, most people abandon their faith or manipulate circumstances to force a win. You didn't. You stayed true even when the world mocked you, even when obedience seemed pointless. Persistence and faith separate survival from triumph. This test wasn't about gratification, it was about character. The divine wanted to see if you would remain consistent when your actions seemed fruitless. Obeying without evidence of reward shows your faith is unconditional. The source isn't impressed by compliance when convenient. The true test is remaining faithful when the outcome is uncertain, when life mocks your patience, when circumstances scream that obedience is a joke. By choosing obedience over outcome, you prove you trust the unseen. Your devotion isn't dependent on results, and your alignment with the divine can't be shaken by setbacks. Passing this test means your faith is unshakable, your character undeniable, and your reward inevitable. The world may measure you by achievement, but the divine measures you by truth, and you remain true. Your obedience was pure, unwavering, and triumphant. 8th, you learned the language of delay without interpreting it as denial. The waiting you endured wasn't punishment but training. The divine didn't withhold blessings to frustrate you. He was teaching you how to read the timing of the universe, how to understand that delay is part of a process, not a signal you were forgotten. Most see waiting as rejection. You held your faith steady, recognizing the pause wasn't personal and was shaping you for what was to come. Enduring delay requires more than patience, it requires discernment. You had to separate doubt from the truth that your timing isn't your own. Many fail this test because they interpret postponement as denial, acting impulsively, forcing outcomes, or abandoning the path. You stayed the course. You didn't let unanswered prayers redefine your trust in the divine. You learned to see the preparation behind the pause. This training in delay transforms endurance into extraordinary faith. Waiting develops discernment, sharpens judgment, and strengthens resolve. It separates those chasing a blessing from those prepared to receive it. You passed because you understood timing doesn't diminish destiny. Heaven's silence was a conversation. You had to learn a language that says not yet but soon, and better than you imagined. By learning this language, you protected your heart from despair and preserved your focus. You didn't rush, settle, or compromise. Instead, you allowed the delay to cultivate wisdom, resilience, and clarity. Your reward is assured. You didn't just endure. You learned, grew, and emerged prepared to receive what was meant for you. Your passing proves that when heaven pauses, it is perfecting. 9th, you became unbuyable. The trials you faced were designed to see if suffering could make you trade your integrity, purpose, or peace. The enemy wanted to test whether pain could make you compromise, whether desperation could make you settle for shortcuts or comfort at the cost of your soul. Most falter, exchanging their values for convenience, applause, or safety. You didn't. You refused every attempt to purchase your surrender. Being unbuyable means your spirit cannot be corrupted. It means that no matter how tempting the offer, appealing, the shortcut, or loud, the crowd cheers, your soul remains untouched. The fire you walked through could not burn away your principles. The trials you endured could not persuade you to bend. You became proof that true power isn't about acquisition. It's about what cannot be taken. This is why your value skyrocketed in heaven's eyes. While others may be measured by what they achieve, your worth is measured by what cannot be bought or compromised. You demonstrated that your loyalty, integrity, and faith are absolute. The world may bribe people into betrayal, but you proved your spirit is not for sale. This resolve distinguishes you, setting you apart as someone the universe can trust with divine favor. Being unbuyable transforms you. So to wrap things up, remember that you've been through the fire and you've come out shining. You've proven your worth in silence, shown compassion in the face of pain, broken cycles that held back generations, mastered your inner voice, overcome humiliation, resisted revenge, chosen obedience over guaranteed outcomes, learned the language of delay, and become utterly unbuyable. That's incredible. You are ready for the abundance that's coming your way. This journey is a testament to your strength, resilience, and unwavering spirit. Now I'd love to hear from you. What resonated with you the most? Do you have a question, a story to share, or a reflection on your own journey? Please leave a comment down below. Let's connect and build each other up. And if you found this helpful and want to keep exploring these powerful truths, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. Let's keep growing and shining together, shining together, shining together, shining together.